Hey everybody, it's John Kraska with Every Library and the Every Library Institute. It is Banned Books Week 2025. We are here today with a big conversation alongside all the other literary programming that we're doing, interviews with banned authors, conversations with the publishing industry, hearing from our colleagues across different civil society, civil liberties groups as well. We wanted to spend a little time with some people who've been in it, in the trenches, as it were. We want to talk today about what happens when teachers and students refuse to accept censorship. I'm joined today by Patricia A. Jackson and Ben Hodge, who are two teachers who were part of a movement, an opposition campaign to censorship, to the issues around erasure that come with censorship as well. Back in 2021, my apologies. I feel like it's that long sometimes. It feels like it's that old. 2021, as they helped support and be the advisors to the Panther Anti-Racist Union. Let me read your bios, and then we'll get into the conversation, okay? Patricia A. Jackson is a high school English teacher in Pennsylvania who's been shaping young voices for over 30 years. Her debut novel, Forging a Nightmare, is a wildly heretical urban fantasy with a black-led cast of fallen angels, infernal warhorses, and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. She's also known for her adventures in the Star Wars universe. From the Star Wars universe, from the smuggler source book Black Sands of Sorko to the Dark Jedi Redemption Tale, The Final Exit, and most recently, Gone to the Winter Circle, A Certain Point of View, The Return of the Jedi. Off the page, Patricia is an unapologetic activist. When her district tried to ban hundreds of books for their racial or LGBTQ plus content, she fought back as a co-advisor to the Panther Anti-Racist Union and won. When not writing or teaching, she's gaming, binge-watching anime, or riding her ever-patient horse, the Sith Lord Indy. Is it a Sith Lord kind of horse, by the way, Patricia? I need to ask.
Oh, he's definitely a Sith Lord. He will let you know.
Okay. And is there more than one, or is it a rule of two?
I lost one this summer, so
I'm so sorry.
I'm just with my Sith Lord. But thank
Very
you.
good. Okay, my condolences about that, sincerely. Ben Hodge, hi, is a 20-year-plus veteran of the classroom and stage. He teaches acting and speech classes and serves as the artistic director for his high school. He has directed over 50 productions, and his play Reach was performed off-Broadway in 2009. A passionate advocate for education policy and diversity initiatives, he created the Panther Anti-Racist Union in 2020 to establish a space for students to have courageous conversations and advocacy regarding social justice issues. This group went on to overturn 2 book bans in their district. His first book, Ban This, How One School Fought 2 Book Bans and Won, and How You Can Too, is coming out this fall. Learner Publishing put us together here between Every Library and these good folks. When he's not teaching, writing, or advocating, he is reading history, gaming, or binge-watching shows with his wife, 2 teenage children, and his 2 Yorkies. September 2021, York, Pennsylvania. Would you take us back to that moment? Because what you did there was before Every Library got going on a lot of our Fight for the First initiatives. We've helped 140-something other communities like York, but we didn't know you then, and I'm sorry about that.
Patty, you do this much better than me. You get the story out.
I'm going to take you back a year.
Okay.
And it was the summer of 2020 in the racial reckoning after the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police officers. Some teachers and guidance counselors, we were concerned that children would ask us questions when we came back to school that August. So we put together a list of resources of just things for teachers, not necessarily to go into classrooms or into curriculum, just for teachers, so that we could absorb diversity and be able to come back and answer tough questions if the kids had any. And that was the summer that one of our school board members, a complete racist, said, "Do we even have a race problem at Central?" That's not for a white person to ask, okay? Because you're an apex predator. You don't necessarily receive racism on the same level that Black and brown people do because of your privilege. And what happened after that is in November, in the heart of COVID, in secret and in quiet, our school board banned that list. They didn't even go look these books. They just took the list the teachers put together and they just banned this list. We're talking an Adrinka African symbols coloring book, Elmo videos about racism. I mean, it was ridiculous. Mostly children's books, like, you know, the hard cardboard type
Yeah, and the
paper.
ones you can chew
Those,
on. Yeah.
yes, yes, those were the kinds of books they were banning. Dr. Seuss books in Spanish, you know, and the school board president at the time just kind of said, yeah, it's just a coincidence that most of these books were by or about Black or brown people or LGBTQ people. I mean, it was ridiculous. So our superintendent, being deviantly compliant, didn't say anything, but he didn't issue any orders to his teachers to go ahead and get rid of these books. So it wasn't until August of 2021 that that order came down through an email of banned resources, is what that it was called. Well, the newspaper found out, and then the kids found out. And the kids went to Ben, the kids from the Panther Anti-Racist Union went to Ben and said, "What are you going to do?" And Ben just kind of tilted his head and was like, "Oh no, what are you going to do?"
Yeah.
And that's sort of when the Panther Anti-Racist Union kind of turned on its head and became an activist group.
Well, that's an extraordinary moment as a teacher and as a partner to these young humans. I mean, your board crossed more than one line.
Yes.
Very, very aggressively, it sounds like. So Ben, when the students first wanted you to get involved, and you told them they got to get involved, what role did you play in shaping that response, though?
Yeah, I think one of the major things that happened in that moment was we got to work planning and thinking about what we can do in terms of the steps that we needed to take in order to make this happen. I had previously, up to this point, been working closely with diversity programming at our district for since 2008 up to this point. And I remember one of the things that also stuck in my craw a lot with this whole thing was not only the racist comments that were coming out, was also they were saying that we and this organization, the teachers that were putting these resource lists together, we were trying to force and jam Marxism and diversity down students' throats, which was, I thought, very hilarious, seeing as Central had been if you look at Central York, had been at the forefront of diversity education and DEI training since 2008. We were the first school district in York County and maybe Pennsylvania, or at least central Pennsylvania, a very conservative area, to have school social workers. We had diversity consultants before it was even a thing, well before. So this claim that we were pushing this ideology that now other groups across the country, I'm sure if you've seen, have taken, that was the thing that I started saying to the kids, like, okay, so let's go with this. If it's true that we've been doing this and you've benefited from these programs, what are some slogans, and if we are going to protest, what are we going to do? The kids decided to do things like wearing red or doing a shirt day where they would wear things, which I thought was great. That worked for a little bit. And then we started to think about raising awareness. And then they said, well, what about protesting? Is what I mentioned to them. And they said, well, okay, let's do it. How can we go about doing that? And so we started to get planning about the protesting, going in and working with the administration to see if that was something that we could do without getting those kids into trouble, and also keeping our narrative set and very clear.
I want to check in with you about those protest moments and some of these techniques around the approach to communications, both internally with students, to parents, to stakeholders in the community, to other educators. But I want to rabbit hole this for 1 second before I do, which is that in some communities that we've been working with, the reason to do a book ban is in order to help make points for an election. Like, and you look at Bucks County, forgive me, I'm in suburban Chicago. It seems like it's real close by, but it ain't. Between Bucks and New York, it's a pretty big distance physically. But in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, they basically ran book bans in order to run candidates. What was it like in York? Was it the second half of a fight that you had already started around racial equity? Like, what was the origin of it?
I think the individuals who were spearheading the book ban, the three, I think fairly 3 to 4 people actively serving on that school board at that time were, I think they were radicalized in the COVID area too, and realized what was happening. And because of all the tumult that was happening, I think they were elected to not, they were already on the board. And by the time they were already elected, they saw a window of opportunity. They didn't like what was going on, and they wanted to take advantage of the fact that they were remote and thinking nobody was going to be watching and listening to them. And so this is when they think they felt strengthened and able to confident to speak openly about this. And they changed their tune very quickly. Because I was at those board meetings before COVID, and they weren't talking anything about it. It was like diving boards and swim coaches and athletic stuff. There was nothing about this. But after George Floyd was murdered and we started to put this resource list together, that's when this started to really, really amp up for them.
Yeah, I'm not asking this from a compassionate or even attempt to understanding perspective. I'm looking for, there's a devious compliance, Patricia, that you mentioned before on the part of your administration. There's a nefarious agenda, it sounds like, that was at work here. I'm asking this question because the response to book bans, oftentimes when we begin to work with the community, it's getting to the root of it. It helps you understand the techniques. So coming back to those powerful moments, if I can, Patricia, what you were part of, and you and Ben were part of, in terms of protests and pushbacks, those powerful moments in that pushback. What did you witness? What did you help enable?
It's what I always see: white people, white women grabbing for power, and they wanted to talk about parental rights. They weren't talking about parental rights for all people. They were talking about their privilege and entitlement. So there was a nefarious agenda well before the book bans came up, and it was a smokescreen for some of these homeschoolers to bring their kids back to the school and get their agendas fulfilled. And one was a $30,000 diving board for one member of the board, okay, for 4 or 5 kids, while other kids are scrambling for resources. But we got that $30,000 school diving board in place for our child. And we made sure our child got all the privileges and no discipline, or almost no discipline. That's really what it came down to. And the smokescreen to keep people from looking at that bottom line or that budget item was the book ban. You know, because when you ring the dog whistle, when you blow the dog whistle, the dogs, who collectively have an IQ of 3, go barking, okay? And then you can do whatever you want to behind the scenes. There are nefarious leaders who are behind this, and they knew they could blow the whistle and divert the attention and get done what they had to get done, because they did that, and then they bailed.
So you both had truth-telling to do. You had truth-telling about the reasons behind it, and you also had truth-telling about the impact of the book bans. Tell me about your kids. Tell me about the students, because I can't imagine from where I'm sitting. Like, I know I'm not a teacher. I'm not good with children. I'm hopeful that the next generation is able to speak up for themselves. It doesn't sound like, and from what I read from your book, it doesn't sound like you had to do much dragging along, though.
I think the initial members and kind of impetus of the Panther Anti-Racist Union, I think this is a great question, not something I had to talk about very much. It came out of my work as a theater educator, right? Okay. And I think by default, bringing Patty in, her creative writing experience, as well as just amazing human being and amazing energy and understanding of the world, right? And being a friend of mine. And I think, but from a theatrical perspective, these were students that were either currently or had worked intensively with me as a theater educator to stand confidently up on a stage and read a monologue and a speech. Many of them were in the intermediate class, which is their main project, is to do a get real presentation or similar to what happened with with our play Reach, where it was basically them telling stories. So the assignment is very simple: turn the mirror onto themselves and a mirror onto their community. And so these were students already versed in hard work, right, of vulnerability and speaking their truth. And the club became an extension of what was happening within my classroom to expand it to people who weren't able to take my class. And so as those kids gathered into that space, we would talk, they would share, they would speak about what was going on, all of that reckoning and all of that mess that was happening in our country at that point. And the natural response was for me to say, okay, part of what are you going to do about it is let's write. Okay, let's write. What would you say about this? What would you do? And then it became a natural extension of that. So these are a wonderful, amazing young people, but I can sit here and tell you that every one of these students involved in the Panther Anti-Racist Union, their stories were powerful. But I would say all of our successful speakers were theater kids. Many of them were theater / performing arts / writers and or like poets, that sort of thing. There's a very good chance that was, which is great.
That's really fascinating. Being a theater kid myself and liking those memes that are going around the internet about, if you really need something to get done, you hire a theater kid.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The just a real quick aside, do you guys do musicals at the theater?
We do.
Yeah. So when we did Finian's Rainbow in 1988, we did not have any microphones. I hope that you're letting the kids just use their natural projection.
Oh, I wish. No, they're not. I wish we could. I know.
It's the Taylor Swiftization of a theater program.
You can talk to Nick, our sound manager. He would have a conversation. Our tech guy would say he agrees with you.
Okay, good. We'll get with that on another segment, but let's get back to the strategies and actions around. Okay, so take me through the playbook then. And it is if it's an act if it's a play in 1 act and 3 acts and 5 acts, I'm very interested to hear how you move those kids along with those kids into a conversation that put books back on the shelf.
Go ahead, Patty.
It was really the first order of business was to control the narrative. If they're trying to take your history, then write your own history, because what you live is authentic, valid, and real. And so we had the kids discovering their voices. And the first part was the writing of the signs. The next part was the writing of speeches to the school board, which was very scary because you're talking to the adults. You're talking to the adults who are in charge of the purse strings of the district. And once the kids realized that they were a bunch of windbags anyway and not scary, their stories got more true, more authentic, tougher, and even demanding. And something that's really important, I'm a huge sci-fi, fantasy geek, but when I look to my favorite movies, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, I don't see myself. And as a writer, I was afflicted by what I call the hero default. The hero had to be white, had to have blonde hair and blue eyes, and in most cases, male. And that's what these kids had experienced. And when we started talking about these things and they started realizing why they have this calming moment when they read a book and the protagonist is black or brown or LGBTQ or relates to them, they were like, I've been cheated. And now they're angry, okay? And that adds to their narratives. And that really was the playbook. Then we got lucky. The media hit. The media started sniffing. And most of these crazies, and that's what they are, they're crazies, they talk about transparency, but they don't like transparency. And the kids were calling them out, and they didn't have the emotional intelligence to be called in and learn something. So they reacted. They just reacted, and they said more and more crazier, outlandish things. And the kids are like, oh, so I see your true colors. And then just kept calling them out. And then media just churned it up, and they got to do a CNN interview. I mean, it was just crazy. It went international.
The script where the public agenda was disconnected from the private and nefarious agenda, and scrutiny doesn't. I mean, I don't know about you, but you watch some Law and Order, you watch Perry Mason, you watch your Columbos. I'm old enough to have watched enough Columbo. That one more question, that the media asks, the third party, the outside party, that had to be a game changer for you all.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that spontaneous, or was that something that was cultivated?
It was spontaneous.
Wow,
It's
really?
not
Okay.
something that we went looking for. We had a really cool local reporter who came sniffing. And it was funny because the administrators, because they were told to be on the lookout for reporters,
Mm-hmm.
not to allow them around, but this reporter looked like another teenager. So
Right.
she's going between the kids and asking questions, and
Mm-hmm.
she's going to the board meetings, and she started publishing these articles in the newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
and it was wonderful. It was really, really good. But then we also had the teachers union who was connecting us with some of the bigger, broader media,
That's great.
who were interested, and they came to ask the kids
Mm-hmm.
questions. And it just like viral, went
Can you give a
nuts.
shout out to the union, which are NEA,
The
NEA?
Pennsylvania State Education Union. It was Matt Fargent and Lori Lebo.
Amen. That's fantastic. The union community knows, I think, very clearly, even at that point, that a lot of these book ban efforts, also not your place, but other places around the country, are anti-teacher. They're anti-public education, and that solidarity that NEA and AFT has around free expression goes back generations. I mean, that's great to hear.
There
Well,
are so
John,
many.
it got so ugly. Sorry, Ben. It got
Yeah.
so ugly that the board came after Ben and I. They thought they were going after the head of the snake, and they were at the wrong part of the snake. But it ended up that PSEA hooked us up with the ACLU,
Mm-hmm.
and the bad guys had no idea that they were walking into the wrong boss level with all the
Mm-hmm.
wrong gear. So go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you
Yeah.
say boss level, like video game boss level? Just wanna make sure
Yes,
I'm hearing you.
boss level,
I
the
got
boss
you. I got
level.
you.
Yeah.
So Ben, what part of the snake were you then?
We were behind patting these guys these folks on the back.
Yeah.
Again, when they would come to us with a problem, question, or issue, we would show them where they could get the information. And it was just great for me
Mm-hmm.
in my journey in the racial reckoning. We were going back to the ancestors and looking in history and the counter narratives that we hadn't been taught. We studied Baldwin. We were like looking at the freedom rides and like Freedom Summer and just like absorbing and reabsorbing all of these things. And you're sitting here and I had already been trained and worked a lot, and Martin Luther King Jr. is one of my like North Stars. But I studied a lot of him during my work with Reach. And then it got even more intense in terms of connecting with the nonviolent approach and looking at the sit-ins and the walk-ins and the protests that were so perfectly executed in the 60s. There's a blueprint there, right? If you're willing to go back and look and do it, there is a blueprint there. And I think that blueprint is kids at the front, if possible, and kids speaking their truth, and kids holding signs, and kids who are not just there for looks. They're there because they genuinely are aware and care about what's happening. They're not props. They're very much the focal point.
Thank you for saying that, Ben.
Yeah, and the adults are behind cheering. You know, one of my favorite pictures of the whole and visceral memories, is at one of the last rallies that I had put together. We had like 4 community rallies that were taking place outside of the place where the school board meetings were, and they were still remote. So people were walking in. The board had to walk in by all of us.
Yeah.
And the last one was, I can't remember, 500, 600 people, which is a lot for our area and community. And there's this picture of myself and Patty and Ida and Renee and Chrissy and Olivia. and we're all just like arm in arm facing this mass of people. And it's really Chrissy and the students who are holding the mic. And, and we're there. We said things, but we were always there to just support and here's what the kids have to say. So I do think that that's a really crucial part. Patty and I have been saying, Patty says this a lot too, and I agree. We've talked about this a lot. In the other instances, our union, the Panther Anti-Racist Union, was selected. We chose union at the end of it on purpose because we wanted it to be a mix of students and teachers, right? Students and adults, right? And we found that was extremely successful for us. And when looking at what followed in other areas and other districts, I think what you probably have seen a lot of is oftentimes it will either be a student group with no teacher or no trusted adult attached to it, and they tend to struggle and or fizzle out. Or you see a teacher or a faculty member or an individual by themselves, and typically that ends in some termination or some sort of leaving or resigning, which I know was kind of happening at Bucks County and other places, right? Neither one is better or worse. We're just saying from our perspective, having that union of students at the forefront with teachers behind, cheering them on and helping them stay strong and following the rules and checking in with the admin, and making sure your signs don't have swear words in them, because that's what's going to be on the front page of the news. It's not going to be put the books back. It's going to be look at those kids and their terrible attitude. It's walking in instead of walking out, so that nobody can say they don't care about their education. They do, and they're coming in to protest and do their First Amendment rights. So I think, to me, that's how we really were the tail. And I think hopefully other people can work with getting that union together.
Yeah, the opportunity that the approach that we have a rubric over here at Everett Library, and one of about if we get involved, okay? And one of the rubrics is, can we, as an outside organization, center the affected population properly? And if we can't, we're not going in, and I don't want to misfire. And I've misfired over my career. I've been I've been in political action for libraries for a long time now. And I don't like doing that, and it is too perilous to come in and not have at the center of it the affected population. There are times, though, where the students can't or the educators can't.
Yep.
And so you do speak not on their behalf, but with their permission. Let me come back around to the rehearsals. And Ben, if this is your question, or Patricia, if this is your question, the workshopping, the common reasons that are given to ban books. What's the playbook, the talking points? What's the truth you got to tell back?
One of the things that I find most despicable is they say that the books are pornographic. And I don't see sexual assault as being pornographic, because pornography is about your consent. That's something that you seek to pleasure yourself, okay, if that's what you need. But sexual assault, someone didn't ask for that. And to call that pornographic is so incredibly disrespectful and just gross. And books are safe places where you can discover things safely about yourself. And children who have been sexually assaulted or abused in other ways, people, not just children, but you can read about this and go, oh, that happened to me. I didn't recognize that. Is that what that is? Oh, and you got help? Maybe I can get help too. And, one of the books, George Johnson's All Boys Aren't Blue did that for several children, where they found the courage to go and find an adult to say, this happened to me. And it saved their lives. Now, is that book appropriate for elementary? No. Is that book appropriate for middle school? No. But it is appropriate at the high school level, okay, for children to read it. And hopefully, if they have a question or a concern, they have a trusted adult. That's the scary part. Children not having a trusted adult that they can go to, even their parents, to ask the question, oh, you're going to hell because you read that book. That's not a trusted adult. Okay, so pornography was one, but I'll let Ben take another.
Oh, that's what our book's about. I mean, to just put the plug in. I mean, the book is designed and
grab the book. Show us the book.
Yeah, I mean, Lerner and Sarah Megabo, our amazing agent, basically worked with us closely to make it not so much about our story, but it is a part of our story, but more about what are the common arguments that people face with book bans, and what were our counter arguments that were successful. Because as you've heard us talk about, we were very explicit and specific about setting and then controlling that narrative, right? So, okay, what are these folks saying? Do we have a race problem? All right, let's get some of my students up. I got several that would love to tell you the story of the time that, they were racially profiled, or the time that a taser was pulled on one of my students for having his hoodie up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, in our school, in the very school that she said is racism, again, so like that is the beauty, I think, and what gets me very excited about the book is it is a playbook for people in their communities who are dealing with this mess, to put it like this hell that is going to, if not currently happen, this maelstrom that takes over school districts where people feel helpless. I hope and pray that people will take this book in, and this book, and they will find the chapter that says, oh, okay, so y'all are saying the discussion of diversity promotes unrest and unpatriotic thoughts. Teaching Black history encourages my white kid to hate themselves. We've got chapters, we've responded to all of those, right? And so those families, those parents, those advocates take this book and go in and say, hey, well, listen, there was a situation, and these arguments don't sound original. They sound like you're getting them from somewhere, but what about this? And now they can go in with some support rather than feeling like they're dodging. Because let's be honest, I'm sure you see this across the country in your work. I feel like our side, the pro-intellectual freedom side, seems to be sometimes a step behind at least especially when we were doing this work. Oh my gosh, there was 10 maybe, and that was it, and it was very hard to connect, and y'all weren't really doing your thing yet, and that's fine. It's one of those things, but this is hopefully going to help people get more active and have some teeth behind what they're doing.
That's one of the reasons we wanted to talk today, because you've written a script, and any good dramaturg and any good director takes that and unpacks it. Okay, we gotta close up today. I gotta ask you two more questions. One is that September of 2021, are your Panther Anti-Racist Union cohort at that point, they're all in college already, right?
Yes, they are. They're currently at different colleges. Yep. Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, the fact that these kids have gone on now to the next part of their adult lives, and to be able to carry that forward. Is the Panther Anti-Racist Union still up and running at York?
It is. We are still active. The book also talks about a second book ban that came up in 2023. Sure. Yep. And that was the third generation, a new group of people, all the original from the second gen from the 2021 ban. They were in college, they were freshmen, and now the next generation had to step up and fight, and they doubled down. So the original was doing, twice a week protests because and it was effective. The third gen at that point had learned from the previous generation. No, we're going to keep the pressure on, Mr. Hodge and Miss Jackson. We're going to every day. We're going out every day, and they did 1 month until they put it to a month and a half. So it was, and now currently we have about 40 members that meets on our day 6 club time, and most of our work now is telling the story of what happened, right? Because these are new kids and they remember they were younger, as well as pursuing little libraries in our community, as well as distributing books in our areas, getting little libraries books, and also just continuing to provide access and education for people as it surrounds anti-racist issues.
That's fantastic. All right, last question for the both of you. Either the looking back, what do you hope people remember, or for community-facing bands moving forward, like what do you want them to know from your experience? And it's not just buy the book; they should buy the book. Like, what's the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a guy.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
I got a guy.
I forgot I was going to close with that, Patricia. I apologize. Yeah.
That would tell you that this takes some muscle. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I suffered a stroke 2 years ago from just being in the stress of all of it. My health was failing. My mother's health was failing.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to maintain my job. I was trying to fight this battle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was too much. And so I got a guy, that would tell you that it's time to get your butt out of the table, away from the arena seats, and to get down into the arena.
There you go.
It's time to get sweaty, bloody, dirty. It's time. You need to take it to these people. And I said to some young people at Gettysburg College, you need to vote. Every time the polls are open, you need to go vote. I don't care what it's for. Many of these people use school board elections as the jumping point to get into Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're crazy, you need to make sure they don't get into the cattle chute. All right? So it's time past due that you give up your place at the table and you come down to the front line and you handle the business that needs to be taken, and stop waiting for the other warriors to do it, because we're tired.
Patricia, I know you're a writer because of visual images, like put them in the cattle chute. So thank you for sharing that and putting that in my head. Ben, what's your final thoughts here?
I mean, not much I can add to that other than, as a white individual, I need my white brothers and sisters to hear what Patty just said. Mm-hmm. And you need to primarily stop coming into people's rooms like mine and saying, like, you're not willing to be the lightning rod, like many of my white colleagues were doing during that time. They're not willing to step out, but we know you are, Hodge, because you've done diversity stuff and you've worked in that area. And that's fine. I was willing to do that, but the time is past due. We cannot afford to, we have to involve ourselves in allyship, more than allyship, in union with each other, and listen to our Black and brown sisters and brothers and other people who are doing this work, and work in true solidarity to push back and to fight back in a, and reverse these bans, and to get some normalcy, if whatever that means, back into our communities. Spend your privilege, any privilege we have, spend it. Okay, whether you have lots of money and you're able to donate to the right causes, if you're an amazing writer and you can write posts and op-eds, do it. If you can run for school board and you're well liked in the community, but you're kind of retired and you're in between just hanging out and you're pro-education, run for school board, okay? And if you can't, make calls for those people, educate your friends and your local people in the neighborhoods and stuff, okay? Because if it's not in your community already, it is on its way.
It's coming.
And we've been saying this for a long time, and you know this better. Once it's in there, you are in for a 2 to 4 year fight, and it is not very pretty.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, you're both the kind of people I like hanging out with, because you have both wisdom and experience, and I appreciate that very much. You know, the time spent today has been very valuable, and I would encourage folks to pick up Ban This from Learner Publishing. In order to get, I mean, if you don't need it right now, that's cool. Read the story anyway. It's a great story, and it's a true story. But if you do need it, the script work, the scene work that's already been done, the exercises that come up, very valuable and very helpful. So,
don't lose hope.
Exactly. Patricia A. Jackson, thank you for being with me today. Ben Hodge, thank you for being with me today. Please give my best to the whatever generation of the Panther Anti-Racist Union it is right now. Every Library Live, folks. Banned Books Week. We've got more to come all week. Anything that we've already done is immediately available, like this will be, as soon as it's over, on demand, Facebook, YouTube, What we always do, team, at the end of these is we wave at the camera, we say thank you to each other, and then I talk to you in the green room. See you soon.